Friends, a couple was having a great time on a ship, but they encounter another ship where all the passengers had been killed. After discovering the tragedy, what happened next was heart-wrenching. At the beginning of the story, we are introduced to a Navy pilot named John, who had recently returned home after a long journey. However, John receives a call from the hospital informing him that his wife, Jelly, is in very bad condition. John immediately rushed to see his wife. Jelly was experiencing severe anxiety attacks, but this wasn't the first time. Jelly had been struggling with depression and had suffered attacks before. John was deeply distressed by all this and was determined to find a way to help his wife. A few years earlier, John had been traveling with his wife and their son when an accident occurred and their son was killed. Jelly couldn't handle the grief and had been suffering from constant stress ever since. She had even stopped eating and deteriorated her health significantly. Because of this, John decided to take Jelly to a private ship for treatment after several days. They were both enjoying their time on the boat, which helped distract Jelly from her troubles, and she was spending quality time with John. However, they had no idea that they had made a grave mistake by coming here. Days later, John spotted another ship a little distance from their boat. Upon closer inspection, John realized that the ship was gradually sinking and likely needed assistance. John tried to contact the ship via radio but received no response. John and Jelly discussed whether they should go to the other ship. They then saw a man waving towards them from the sinking ship. This man had come from the other ship, so John and Jelly pulled him aboard their boat. The man introduced himself as Darren. Due to his time in the cold water, Darren was very cold. John began to question him about where he was from. Darren explained that he had come here on vacation with his friends. However, due to a hole in the boat, it began to sink rapidly. Darren's friends had died after eating a poisonous fish due to hunger. Darren had been stranded on the sinking ship for days, and when he saw John's boat, he immediately came over. John, being a Navy officer, had to question Darren. Darren showed him his friends' passports, but John and Jelly were puzzled. If someone's life is in danger, they save themselves, not collect their friends' passports. John needed to find out what happened on the other ship, so after discussing with Jelly, they decided John would go check the ship. Before leaving, John locked Darren in a room and quickly took a small boat to the other ship. Upon arrival, John noticed that everything on the ship was abandoned and sinking slowly. He went below deck to investigate and accidentally opened a door, causing water to flood in. As he continued to investigate, he found many dismembered bodies. John was shocked and quickly went back up. Realizing that Darren couldn't be responsible for all of this, John rushed back to Jelly. Meanwhile, Darren woke up and broke out of the room. Jelly was approaching John, who had returned in the small boat, but Darren sneaked up and knocked her out. When John reached his ship, it was immediately taken over by Darren, who then left with both John's ship and Jelly. John had a minor injury on his hand and had to return to the other boat. Terrified that Darren might harm his wife, John noted Darren's coordinates so he could rescue Jelly later. John knew he had to fix everything and move forward. On the other side, when Jelly regained consciousness, she saw Darren dancing in an unusual manner. Darren was now getting very close to Jelly. Jelly was powerless to do anything because Darren was in control of the entire boat. He could easily kill Jelly just as he had done with his friends, but Darren kept talking to Jelly instead. He claimed he didn't like humans and wanted to become like an animal, hunting like one. As Darren became increasingly aggressive, it became clear that he was a psycho with unstable mental health. Jelly realized that if she angered Darren, he might do anything to her. So, she began agreeing with Darren, trying to keep him calm. Darren, somewhat reassured by their conversation, started to calm down, and they both continued forward. Meanwhile, John was repairing the damaged engine of the ship. After several hours of hard work, John managed to fix it, which powered up all the electronic devices, including the TV. On the screen, John saw footage revealing that he had initially summoned his friends and then killed them in a psychotic manner, which frightened him greatly. He became even more worried about his wife. John immediately used the ship's radio to contact Jelly, who had managed to connect with him. They communicated using code words. Jelly cleverly rocked the boat, then disabled the engine and threw the key into the water. However, Darren had befriended John's dog and retrieved the key with its help. Darren was violently attacking Jelly, so she locked herself in the bathroom to save herself. But she knew she couldn't stay there forever and would have to come out eventually. Meanwhile, John was on the sinking ship, and large waves of water started filling it up quickly. John got trapped below deck while trying to pump out the water. The exit was completely blocked, and if he stayed there any longer, he could drown. The situation was becoming increasingly critical as the ship continued to fill with water, and Jelly had nothing to say to Darren in the meantime. Because Jelly knew that if she wanted to stay alive, she had to avoid angering Darren at all costs. She mixed her medication into Darren's drink, which made him fall asleep after drinking the juice Jelly had given him. Jelly hoped this would give her the advantage she needed, but Darren had seen her preparing the drink, leading to a physical struggle between them. Darren was attacking Jelly violently, but she managed to get another shooter. She first used it to get into a room and then shot through the door. Blood started oozing out from the door, but when Jelly checked outside, she realized it wasn't Darren but their dog. Darren then came from behind and grabbed Jelly by the throat. As Darren was about to kill her, the effects of the medication made him fall unconscious. Jelly locked Darren in the room and went upstairs to search for John. She had no idea where John might be. Night had fallen, but John was still trapped in the ship. Summoning all his courage, John broke out of the small boat's compartment and managed to get out. He then signaled Jelly by lighting up the boat. Seeing the signal, Jelly realized John was nearby, so she quickly steered her boat towards him. However, there was bad news. Darren had regained consciousness and was now free, heading back to the boat. Jelly was prepared for this and repeatedly shot Darren with her shooter until he was completely unconscious. She then put Darren in a small lifeboat and sent him away from their boat. Upon reaching John's ship, Jelly pulled him up. John was extremely happy to see his wife, and Jelly was relieved to see John too. Despite everything, Jelly was no longer depressed and hadn't had any anxiety attacks. John and Jelly took their boat and headed back. But then, on the way, they saw the same lifeboat where Jelly had thrown Darren. However, the lifeboat was now completely empty. They thought Darren might have drowned in the water, but suddenly, Darren appeared behind Jelly and attacked her. Jelly started screaming continuously, realizing that Darren might kill her like an animal. At that moment, John picked up a player gun, aimed it at Darren, and fired, creating a hole in Darren's skull. Darren fell into the water and died immediately. Now, John and Jelly were safely able to return home. Through all these experiences, Jelly understood one thing: that we often long for what we don't have. Despite the ordeal, Jelly didn't experience any depression or anxiety because she had to save her husband and her own life. Afterward, Jelly decided to forget the past and focus on creating a better future. And so, our story ends here.